She hides in a closet to escape her ex, but the billionaire boss is there and says, "I was waiting for you." She only wanted a few minutes to breathe, to hide, to escape the sting of being humiliated, again, by her ex in the middle of the office in front of everyone. But when Harper Lane opened the supply closet inside the conference room, someone was already inside. Not Brent, not a coworker, Lucian Ward, the CEO, the most unreachable man in the building, the one no one spoke to without an appointment. And there they were, locked in a space too small for silence. She tried to explain, her voice shaking, heart pounding in her throat. But before she could get out a single apology, he stepped closer, his voice low, steady, and far too warm for such a small space. "I was waiting for you." From that moment on, nothing in her life would ever be the same. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. "You need to stop embarrassing yourself, Harper. He's not coming back." The words dropped like bricks in the middle of the office hallway. Everyone turned. Even the printer paused. Harper Lane stood frozen beside the glass meeting room, one hand still clutching a stack of folders, the other tightening around her beige coat. Her ex-fiancé, Brent, towered in front of her with his usual smugness, loud, charming, and perfectly aware of the audience watching. "You begged for this job, didn't you?" he added, lowering his voice, but not enough. "Don't think just because you're working here now, it means you're suddenly someone." A stifled laugh came from the front desk. A few colleagues awkwardly ducked behind their monitors. Harper's heart thudded. Not here, not again, not in front of everyone. Without replying, she stepped back, then turned sharply toward the nearest door, the conference room. It was empty, or at least it looked like it. She closed the door quietly behind her, dropped the folders on the sleek table, and scanned the room. There, a narrow supply closet tucked into the wall. It was ridiculous, hiding like this, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She opened the closet, stepped inside, and pulled the door closed behind her. It smelled faintly of lemon polish and cedarwood. And then, click! Yes, she wasn't alone. The presence hit her before her eyes adjusted. A soft breath, the subtle shift of air, and then the low, unmistakably masculine voice, "I was waiting for you." Her heart jumped into her throat. Her back pressed instinctively against the wall of brooms and rolled blueprints. She blinked hard, trying to focus in the dark. "Who?" she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry, I didn't know." The man moved, a slow step closer. "I'm not who you were hiding from," he said calmly, "but I know who he is." There was no mistaking the voice now. Controlled, smooth. A tone she'd only ever heard in the company-wide meetings. He rarely spoke more than a few words at once, but it was him. Lucian Ward, CEO, billionaire, untouchable, and standing less than a foot away in the dark with his sleeves rolled up and a scent like expensive leather and midnight woods curling around him. Harper's breath hitched. "I'll leave. I'm so sorry," she said again, trying to edge sideways. But there was no space, no light, just the tension between them and the silence buzzing with questions. He didn't stop her, but he didn't move either. Instead, he asked, softer this time, with a tone that almost sounded like concern, "Is he always like that to you?" Her throat tightened. She tried to speak, but couldn't find anything that didn't taste like shame. Finally, she forced out, "I didn't know anyone else was in here." "That makes two of us," Lucian replied with a low chuckle. Dry, not unkind. It cracked the tension just enough to let her breathe. A long pause followed. Harper let herself lean slightly against the back wall. Her heels ached. Her coat had slipped from her arm and lay crumpled by her feet. In the dim light creeping under the doorframe, she could just make out the outline of his shoulder. Broad, steady, too close. Then, as if remembering they were still in a broom closet, Lucian asked, "Would you like some coffee?" She almost laughed. "Are you offering to make it?" she asked, still unsure if this was a fever dream or a career-ending incident. He paused. "No, but I know where it's hot and fresh and far from the hallway." She hesitated and then nodded, even if he couldn't see it. They stepped out into the conference room together, not touching, not speaking, just two people who'd been strangers 5 minutes ago, but somehow now carried a secret. The hallway was empty. Brent had vanished. So had most of the others. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner and distant typing remained. Lucian didn't speak as he led her down the side corridor, through a frosted glass door labeled Executive Lounge, and into a space Harper had only ever peeked into. The coffee machine alone looked like it cost more than her apartment lease. He poured 2 cups. "Cream?" he asked, already holding it. She nodded again. He remembered. They sat, not at the sleek marble counter, but at a small table in the corner beside a window that overlooked the evening skyline. It was strangely quiet up here, as if this floor existed in another city entirely. Lucian didn't ask her any more questions. He simply drank his coffee, glanced once or twice at her, and said finally, "If he ever speaks to you that way again, come straight here." She looked up, startled. "To the executive lounge?" she asked, half teasing, half serious. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened, that steel blue that had unnerved so many now unexpectedly warm. "No, to me." A silence hung there, heavy, real. Before she could speak again, a quiet buzz echoed from his phone. He stood, adjusted the cuff of his shirt, and reached for his jacket from the back of the chair. "Your coat," he said, leaning down to retrieve it gently from the floor. He held it out, and for a second, their hands brushed. His fingers were warm, steady, clean, symbolic. She blinked, because dangling from his other wrist was a small silver pin shaped like a compass rose. Elegant, subtle, but unmistakable. Her grandmother had one just like it, an old family heirloom passed down for generations. She hadn't seen one since the estate sale. Her voice caught. "That pin?" Lucian's brows lifted slightly. "You recognize it?" But before she could answer, the door opened sharply. A woman, tall, severe, clipboard in hand, paused mid-step. "Mr. Ward," she said coolly, "you're needed in the boardroom." He gave Harper one last glance. No smile, just a nod, and then he was gone, leaving Harper alone again, with a full cup of coffee, 1,000 questions swirling, and the sense that she had just stepped into something far deeper than a borrowed broom closet. Harper didn't sleep that night. She tried. Chamomile tea, a long bath, even a podcast with ocean sounds and breathing prompts. But every time her eyes closed, it came back. The sound of the closet door shutting, the warmth of his voice in the dark, and the faint scent of cedar and leather that still lingered on her coat. "I was waiting for you." He couldn't have meant it. Not the way it sounded, not for her. Maybe he'd been waiting for someone else. Maybe she'd misunderstood. Maybe the whole thing, the look in his eyes, the way he handed her the coat, the way he asked about Brent, was nothing more than decency. And then there was the pin, that silver compass rose on his wrist. It couldn't be the same one her grandmother owned. It was just similar, right? But deep down, Harper knew better. Her grandmother's pin was one of a kind, handmade, passed down for generations. It had been missing for years, sold in the estate sale after everything fell apart, and now it was on his wrist. The next morning, Harper arrived early, too early. The sun hadn't fully cleared the buildings, and the floor was still empty. Even the coffee machine hadn't finished brewing. She told herself it was to get a head start on invoices, but really she just couldn't face another run-in with Brent, not yet. Not after the hallway incident, not after Lucian saw it. She stood at the copier with a stack of reports, the air still and quiet. Then, footsteps. Not the shuffle of interns or the nervous taps of middle management. No. Polished, measured, purposeful. Italian leather shoes. Harper froze. Lucian Ward turned the corner like he belonged in every room. Suit crisp, hair slightly tousled, silver watch gleaming. His jacket was slung over one arm, coffee in the other. He stopped when he saw her, just for a moment. Then he smiled, not the polite, closed-mouth smile he gave at press events. This one was real, a little too real for 7 in the morning. "You're early," he said. She nodded, her voice catching before it even reached her throat. I thought I'd catch up on numbers." "You do realize it's Friday," he said. "No one looks at numbers on a Friday." That made her smile. A small one, but enough to soften her nerves. He moved past her and placed a second coffee cup on the copier. Without a word, she looked at it, then at him. "I didn't order this." "I know." There was a pause. "I don't even know how you take your coffee," he added. "So I guessed." She picked it up. It was warm, light. One sip, and her eyebrows rose. 2 sugars, splash of oat milk. "Huh. How did you get it exactly right?" she asked. Genuinely surprised, Lucian tilted his head. "You always pass the cafe downstairs at 7:45. That's what they call out when you pick it up." She blinked. "You noticed?" "I notice everything," he said. And this time, his voice dropped just enough to make her chest tighten. He turned toward the copier, glancing at the stack of printed invoices. "You work fast," he said, flipping through a few pages. "I like being efficient," she said. "Less chance of mistakes." That explains your file labeling system." She blinked again. "You've seen my files?" Lucian didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small. Silver. Familiar. The pin. The compass rose gleamed in his hand. "I figured you'd want a closer look," he said softly. "You recognized it yesterday." Her mouth went dry. He was holding it out to her now. Not like someone showing off, but like someone offering something delicate, something loaded. She hesitated before reaching for it. As soon as her fingers touched the edge, she knew it was the same. The weight, the slight dent near the top curve, the scratch from when her little sister dropped it down the stairs years ago. "This is," she whispered, "this belonged to my grandmother." Lucian studied her. "I thought so. How did you get it?" He didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "You weren't supposed to see that." Her breath caught. He slipped the pin back into his pocket. "I bought it at an estate auction. I didn't know the family. Something about it caught my eye. I have an old habit of buying small vintage pieces at family estate auctions. I've always believed objects carry stories that deserve to continue." Harper couldn't stop staring. "My grandmother used to say it brought her clarity," she murmured. "Direction when everything felt like chaos." Lucian nodded slowly. She wasn't wrong. Another silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just full. Then, "Mr. Ward?" a voice echoed from down the hall. Both of them turned. It was Cheryl from HR, her heels clacking and clipboard in hand, visibly confused. "Oh," she said, eyeing them both. "I didn't know you were down here. The London investors are on Zoom now." Lucian gave her a small nod. "I'll be right there." Cheryl gave Harper a subtle glance. One of those glances. Then disappeared. Lucian turned back to Harper. "We'll talk more," he said, "about the pin and other things." He started to walk off, but then paused. "I still think you drink coffee too early," he added, half teasing. And with that, he was gone. Harper stood frozen, the warmth of the coffee still in her hands, the weight of old memories pressing against her chest, and the lingering question of why Lucian Ward, of all people, had been drawn to a piece of her past. By Monday morning, the entire 14th floor knew Harper Lane had been in the executive lounge. She could feel it in the way the interns whispered by the copier. in how two women in HR suddenly went silent the moment she entered the break room. But worst of all was the email, not to her, about her. Subject, new favorite? It was sent accidentally to the finance department's group thread. A blurry photo, 2 coffee cups, one figure mostly blocked by shadows. The other unmistakable, tall, suited, sleeves rolled up, Lucian Ward. She hadn't even noticed the camera, but someone had. Harper's cheeks burned. She closed the tab without replying, tucked her trembling hands under the desk, and stared at the screen, her numbers blurred. It had been just coffee. But in an office like this, one with glass walls, sleek suits, and watchful eyes, coffee meant everything. She buried herself in spreadsheets, eyes dry but throat tight. Just keep working, keep invisible. And yet, at 10:12 a.m., a soft knock landed on her cubicle wall. She looked up, startled. It was Sandy. From payroll. Kind eyes, round glasses, one of the few people who never gossiped or looked bored. "Just dropping this off," Sandy said, slipping a file into Harper's inbox, then leaned in, voice low. "I saw the email. People are being petty." Harper opened her mouth, but Sandy gently shook her head. "For what it's worth," she added, "if the boss wants to have coffee with someone who actually does her job, who cares?" Harper blinked. It wasn't much, but it was kindness. She nodded. "Thank you." Sandy smiled. "And for the record, I like your hair down. Makes you look less like you're trying to disappear." Then she was gone. Harper stayed late that night, partly to finish reports, mostly to avoid running into Brent, who, conveniently, had stopped making eye contact but was now always accidentally passing by her desk. She slipped into the break room after 6. Most of the building was quiet, and her heels echoed too loudly. She made herself a cup of tea this time. No coffee, something soft, unnoticed. But when she turned the corner to return to her desk, Lucian was there, leaning against her cubicle wall. No assistant, no guard, no preamble. Just standing there like it was the most normal thing in the world. She froze mid-step. He glanced at the tea in her hand. "No coffee today?" Harper gave a nervous smile. Didn't want to start another office thread. Lucian's jaw tensed, just slightly. "I saw it." Of course he did. Harper looked down. "It's fine." "No, it's not." His voice wasn't raised, but it landed. He stepped forward, lowering his tone as he looked at her. "You've done nothing wrong, and if anyone in this company tries to humiliate you for drinking coffee with anyone, they'll be dealt with." Her heart raced. This wasn't a man playing favorites. This was a man who didn't tolerate cruelty. Harper nodded, slowly. Then, unexpectedly, Lucian leaned against the edge of her desk and glanced around. "Do you have a moment?" She hesitated, then nodded again. "Sure." He pulled a small envelope from his inner jacket pocket, placed it gently on her desk. She looked at it, confused. Inside was a photo, old, slightly faded, but unmistakable. Her grandmother, smiling on a porch swing, on her lap. A toddler. Her. Harper gasped. "I found it in the back of the frame," Lucian said softly, "when I bought the pin at the estate auction. I thought maybe you'd want it." She picked it up, holding it with both hands as if it might shatter. "I haven't seen this in years," she whispered. "This was our lake house." "I figured it was something special," he replied. "You looked happy." She looked up at him, and for a moment they just stood there, two people from completely different lives, sharing a memory that didn't belong to either of them anymore. Then, like life always does, reality intruded. Brent, standing 10 feet away, arms crossed, staring. Harper saw him. So did Lucian. Lucian didn't move, but the temperature in the room dropped. Brent stepped closer, tone cold. "Is this how promotions work now?" Harper flinched. Lucian straightened. "There's a reason you're no longer in procurement, Mr. Lancer," he said evenly. And comments like that are exactly why. Brent's jaw tightened. "You think giving her some old jewelry makes her important?" he said, glancing at Harper with open disdain. "People like her don't get second chances. We earn our place. Or we lose it." Lucian stepped forward. "Then consider this your last warning," he said quietly. "One more word, and your access badge won't work tomorrow." Brent looked between them, eyes full of something bitter, burning, but he backed off, didn't speak again, just walked away. The silence left behind was thick. "Electric." Lucian turned to Harper, slower now. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," he said. She nodded, but her chest ached. Not just from embarrassment, but because part of what Brent said had echoed something she believed deep down. People like her didn't get second chances. Not in this world. Lucian must have seen it in her eyes. He reached into his pocket again. This time, he pulled out the compass pin, opened his hand. "You said your grandmother used this to find clarity," he said. "Maybe. Now it's your turn." She stared at it, then at him. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted. Lucian's voice dropped, just above a whisper. "I do." The pin sat in Harper's desk drawer all morning. She hadn't even touched it after Lucian left. Just opened the drawer, placed it gently inside her day planner, and shut it, as if hiding it away would slow everything down. But it didn't. People were watching her now. Every time she walked to the printer, every time she passed the elevator. She could feel their curiosity clinging to her like static. By lunchtime, she almost didn't go to the staff lounge, but her stomach growled, loudly, pathetically. So she gave in. She brought her Tupperware, leftover soup, barely warm after the office microwave's best effort, and sat in the far corner, away from the windows. No one joined her, except, "Mind if I sit here?" Harper looked up mid-spoonful. Lucian, carrying a brown paper bag and a quiet storm of attention. The room, which had been buzzing with casual conversation, fell into awkward silence. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else mumbled an excuse to leave. Lucian didn't blink. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat. Harper's voice came out small. "You know they're all staring." He looked around slowly, then back at her. "Then let them look." She stared at him. He unwrapped a sandwich like they were just two co-workers killing time over lunch. His tie was off, top button open, relaxed but still powerful, still him. "I didn't expect you down here," she said carefully. "I told you I notice everything," he replied, biting into the sandwich, including people skipping meals and hiding in stairwells. She flushed. "I wasn't hiding." He said with a teasing glance. "Is that why your badge records show you avoiding the executive floor for 2 full days?" Harper blinked. "You checked my—" Lucian raised an eyebrow. "I'm thorough." She gave a dry laugh. "That's not intimidating at all." He smiled, her first real laugh in days. They ate mostly in silence after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Lucian didn't talk to impress. He asked her about the project she was leading, actually listened, made a few smart suggestions, but never overstepped. When she asked about his schedule, he shrugged. "Canceled my lunch upstairs. Thought I'd rather be here." She nearly choked on her soup. Across the room, Cheryl from HR was pretending not to eavesdrop with an empty teacup in hand. Lucian leaned forward just slightly. "I wanted to return something," he said. She tilted her head. He reached into his inside pocket, again, and gently placed the compass pin on the table between them. Harper blinked. "I thought I already—" "You did," he said, "but I had it cleaned." It sparkled now, less tarnished, more alive, almost like it remembered it once belonged to someone strong. Harper reached for it slowly, her fingers brushing the edge. It was warm, or maybe that was her. "She wore it every time she had to be brave," Harper murmured. "She used to say it reminded her where she came from." Lucian watched her, eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. "Well," he said, "maybe you should wear it too." A pause. She hesitated. Then, to her own surprise, she clipped it to her blouse. Not high on the collar like her grandmother had, but over her heart. Small, visible. And just like that, she felt taller, not louder, just steadier. When Lucian stood to leave, nearly every person in the room looked away quickly, pretending to type, to scroll, to stir empty cups. He didn't acknowledge any of them. But as he passed Harper's chair, he leaned down and said low, "There's something else I think you should see." Then he was gone. Harper didn't breathe for 5 full seconds. That evening, she found the envelope on her keyboard. No note. Inside, another photo. Newer, sharper. Her grandmother holding her on that porch swing, sunlight falling across the wood like a memory she had forgotten she missed. Tears threatened the corners of her eyes. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't office gossip or coffee or misunderstanding. He'd known who she was before he ever said her name. He'd known her family, maybe even her story. But why? And what did it mean that a man like Lucian Ward, who lived in penthouses and private jets, was drawn to the girl who once spent her summers on a crumbling lake porch? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It wasn't Brent, or HR, or anyone she expected. It was Sandy again, kind eyes, cardigan, holding something in a small gift bag. "Found this while cleaning out the old supply cabinet," she said with a smile. "Thought you'd want it back." Harper took it confused. Inside, a tin box, faded label, familiar scuff. She opened it. Her grandmother's sewing kit, left behind, forgotten. Somehow, still here. Inside it, tucked between buttons and faded thread, was a tiny folded card in her grandmother's handwriting. "Never apologize for standing tall in a room that wants you small." Harper blinked fast. When she looked up, Sandy was gone. Harper didn't know what changed first, the way people looked at her or the way she looked at herself. Maybe it was the pin. Maybe it was the photo. Maybe it was the way Lucian Ward looked at her, like she wasn't a mistake, just a woman whose story wasn't over yet. She wore the compass pin again the next day, clipped just over her heart. Not to impress anyone, just to remember who she used to be before everything went wrong. But someone noticed, not Lucian. Vivian Cross, the woman who had been by Lucian's side for over a decade, his most trusted advisor, and, if gossip was to be believed, the person who decided who belonged in his world and who didn't. Vivian crossed the lobby like a woman walking on polished marble. Precise, controlled, unshakably elegant. She paused just long enough to scan Harper's chest. The pin, then her eyes, and smiled without warmth. "You're braver than I thought," she said, not as praise, as a warning, then walked away. At 11 a.m., Harper's inbox pinged. Subject: Strategy and Development Onboarding. New assignment. She blinked. It was real. Lucian had made it real. 1 floor up. New role. New eyes on her. And a direct line to the man who made her feel visible. She walked up to the 17th floor with the calm of someone who'd practiced her breathing in the stairwell. Twice. The hallway was quieter, the air sharper, the desks glossier. And yet she didn't turn back. Lucian's assistant, a soft-spoken man named Ezra, smiled politely and gestured toward the corner office. "He's waiting for you." She stepped inside. Lucian looked up from a document, sleeves rolled again, collar open, that same quiet intensity in his eyes. "You came. You asked," she said. He gave that half smile again, the one that made her forget what city they were in. "I want to be clear," he said. "This isn't charity or favoritism. I've seen your work, the way you organize systems, how you solve problems. You belong in this seat." For months, Harper had quietly done the work of 3 analysts. No one noticed until Lucian actually paid attention. Harper crossed her arms gently. "You realize no one else thinks I earned this. I don't care what they think. She paused. But I do. Lucian stood. Then, prove them wrong. That hit her somewhere deep, because it wasn't just a challenge. It was permission. I will, she said. And something inside her, something old and wounded, took a breath for the first time in years. Her new workspace was tucked just outside his office. Glass desk, view of the harbor. Ezra brought her a welcome packet, a sleek tablet, and a plant for the desk. Courtesy of the boss, he said. Harper blinked. He gave me a plant? Ezra shrugged. He said you'd probably forget to water it. He picked a forgiving one, she smiled. He's not wrong. As Ezra left, Harper sat down and exhaled. She ran her fingers over the edge of the desk, then over the pin on her blouse. Still there, still real. Lunch came and went without incident. Just emails, onboarding materials, a video call with the team in Singapore. At 2:47 p.m., a calendar invite appeared. Meeting. Internal brand alignment with V-Cross. Harper's stomach tightened. She walked to the conference room just past Lucian's office. Vivian was already there, spine straight, legs crossed, iPad in hand. Sit, Vivian said pleasantly, gesturing to the chair across the table. Let's talk optics. Harper obeyed. Vivian didn't waste time. You're talented. No one's disputing that. But perception matters here. People are watching, closely. I'm aware. Good. Then you'll understand when I say this. The pin you're wearing, the personal coffee chats, the after-hours conversations, they don't go unnoticed. Harper held her gaze. They weren't meant to be secret. No, Vivian agreed, folding her hands. But they weren't meant to be seen either. Silence. Harper straightened. Are you suggesting I step back? I'm suggesting you decide whether you want to be respected or talked about. A beat passed. Then Harper did something she hadn't done in years. She smiled. I've spent most of my life trying not to be seen. I think I'm done with that. Vivian studied her for a long, unreadable moment. Then she nodded, slowly. Brave, she said again. Let's see if it holds. The meeting ended without a handshake. That evening, Harper lingered in the office long after the lights dimmed. Lucian stepped out of his office just past 7, coat slung over his arm. You're still here? She nodded. Vivian wanted to make sure I understood how fragile this position is. His jaw flexed. She did she? She was very clear. Lucian walked over, leaned against the edge of her desk. She's loyal, but she protects what she believes I've built, not always how I would. Harper looked up. And what about you? Do you believe I belong here? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced down at the compass pin, reached out, not to touch it, but just to acknowledge it. She wore it every time she had to face something she didn't think she could, Harper said softly. Even if it was just dinner with bankers, Lucian smiled gently. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. They stood like that for a long moment, quiet, balanced, like something was about to shift. Then the elevator dinged. Vivian appeared in the reflection of the glass, watching. Lucian saw her too. He turned to Harper, voice low. If you want this job, I'll back you all the way. Harper nodded once. I want the job. He looked at her, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who finally remembered she could stand on her own. The morning started with a crisis, not an emergency, not officially, but in the corporate world. A wrong file sent to a major client was enough to start a quiet panic. Harper hadn't sent it, but it had come from her new department, and she was the newest name on the list. Her inbox flooded with just checking and can you confirm? Emails by 9:07 a.m. sharp. By 9:12, Cheryl from HR was hovering near her desk again, casually, but too obviously. And by 9:18, Vivian Cross walked past her workspace with the air of someone who'd already drafted the "I told you so" in her head. Harper sat still, spine straight, fingers clenched in her lap. Her first week in the new role, And she was already at the center of a mistake she didn't make. She could feel it, the whispers starting again. She could smell the shift, that cold office instinct of people pulling back quietly to protect their own positions. And then the elevator opened. Lucian. He stepped out, sleeves rolled, jaw tense, and walked straight past everyone without a glance. Straight to Harper. She stood up. "I didn't," she started. But he raised one hand gently. "I know." Harper's heart thudded. Lucian turned to Ezra, his assistant. "Trace the access logs on the client file. I want every time stamp from the last 48 hours. Ezra nodded and vanished. Then, without waiting, Lucian turned to Harper and said calmly, "Come with me." They didn't speak until they reached the small boardroom on the east side of the building, the one with no windows, no cameras, no rumors. Lucian closed the door behind them and leaned against the table. "I know you didn't send that file," he said again. "You're meticulous. You triple-check." Harper swallowed hard. "But they don't believe that." "They don't have to. I do." Silence. Then she asked quietly, "Do you regret promoting me?" His expression shifted, not with anger and with hurt. "No," he said, voice low, "but I'd regret it if you started questioning yourself because of one bad morning." She nodded, but her throat stayed tight. "I'm trying not to," she admitted, "but I feel like every step I take forward, someone's already waiting to drag me back." Lucian stepped closer, not touching her, but near enough for her to feel the warmth of him, the steadiness. "You're not being dragged," he said. "Dragged. You're being watched, because you're worth watching now." That hit her, deep. And then he reached toward her blouse. She stiffened, until she realized what he was doing. Her compass pin had come loose on one side. He fixed it, carefully, like it was delicate. "You forgot to clasp the backing," he murmured. Her cheeks flushed. "Thank you." Lucian held her gaze for one long moment, then stepped back. "Now, let's find out who made the error." By noon, the logs showed what Harper suspected. The file had been changed by Rachel, a junior strategist on loan from HR. She'd copied the wrong version and forwarded it without checking the date. It had nothing to do with Harper. Lucian had Ezra issue a quiet correction to the client, no drama, no public shaming, but he did something else too. He sent Harper a message, just one line. "You were right to stand still. They'll learn from your silence." She didn't reply. She just let herself exhale and feel that quiet win in her chest. Word spread through the department that Brent had requested a transfer, far from Lucian's oversight and even farther from Harper. At 1:40 p.m., she went to the staff lounge. It was quieter now, most people avoiding her, unsure of what Lucian's favor really meant. She sat near the back, alone, with a small sandwich and a plastic fork. 5 minutes later, Lucian walked in with a black lunch bag in hand. "You again?" she teased, raising an eyebrow. "Seems we keep meeting in poorly lit rooms with bad coffee." She laughed, a real laugh this time. He sat beside her, opened the bag, and pulled out 2 containers. One of them, her favorite, spinach and ricotta stuffed shells. She stared. "You memorized my lunch order now?" Lucian smiled. "I take my executive team's preferences seriously." "You mean me?" He shrugged. "I only have one executive team member who hides in the corner and forgets to eat." Her chest warmed. They ate together quietly. A few sideways glances still drifted from across the room, but Harper didn't care, not now, not with him beside her, calm and real, and here. After lunch, as they walked back toward their floor, she hesitated, stopped just outside the elevator. Lucian turned. "Something wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that barely reached above a whisper, "I'm not afraid of falling, Lucian." He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She met his eyes, vulnerable, clear. "I'm afraid of falling in front of you." Silence. It cracked something open between them. Lucian didn't speak, but he stepped forward. Slowly, and with the gentlest motion, just one hand, he reached for hers, not to pull her, just to hold. Harper didn't know how long they stood there, her hand in his, the elevator light flickering behind them. Lucian didn't pull her closer, but he didn't let go either, and somehow that said more. She looked down at their hands, how his completely covered hers, warm, still, steady. "This shouldn't feel safe," she said softly. Lucian tilted his head. "Does it?" She nodded. "I don't want it to," she added half a breath later. "Not yet." He let go carefully, respectfully, but the air between them still carried what had just passed through it, that thin, bright line between almost and more. He didn't speak again until they reached the top floor. "Come with me," he said. Not an order, an invitation. The rooftop of Ward Enterprises wasn't listed on the directory. You had to know the code. You had to be let in. And Harper, clearly, had just been let in. Lucian opened the side access door, and the evening air hit her immediately. Fresh, cold, honest. The rooftop wasn't glamorous. Just flat stone tiles, a few weathered benches, and soft perimeter lighting. No skyline views staged for selfies. Just a quiet place above it all. Lucian set a thermos on the bench and poured tea into 2 metal travel mugs. Harper raised an eyebrow. "No espresso machine up here?" He gave a tired smile. "Not every conversation needs caffeine." They sat, just far enough apart to feel proper, just close enough to feel real. The city buzzed below them like a quiet hum of memory. Harper sipped. It was chamomile, not fancy. Just warm. Lucian didn't look at her at first. He just spoke, voice low. "You're not the only one who's been trying to outrun a last name." That caught her off guard. She turned. Lucian stared out into the darkness. "My father was theatrical, wealthy, loud. He believed men were born to own things and women were born to be managed. My mother left before I turned 12. The only reason I got out of that house with a soul intact was because of a housekeeper who taught me how to boil an egg and talk like a human being." Harper listened, hands wrapped around her mug. "I didn't inherit the empire," he said. "I burned it down, sold off the pieces. Built this from scratch, no investors, just blood and memory and spite." She blinked. "I thought you inherited Ward Enterprises." "I inherited the name," he said. "The rest? I earned, brick by brutal brick." He finally turned to her. "That's why I notice people like you, not the loud ones, the ones who are still deciding whether they're allowed to exist." Harper looked down at the compass pin. "My grandmother used to say this only pointed home if you were brave enough to name what home was." Lucian nodded slowly. "So," he asked, "where's home for you?" She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "I don't know yet, but I think I'm getting closer." They sat in silence after that, no pressure to speak. Just 2 people, 2 mugs of tea, and a little heat in the cold. They returned to the office just past 7:30. Most floors were empty by then, but the 17th still buzzed with quiet after-hours tension. Lucian paused by Harper's new desk. "You'll be assigned to the Rainier proposal next," he said. "It's a challenge." "But I trust you." She nodded. "Thank you." As he turned, she surprised herself. "Lucian, wait." He stopped. "I just need to say something before I lose my nerve." He turned back. "I know I don't fit the part," she said. "I walk around this building feeling like everyone's waiting for me to trip. Maybe even hoping for it." "They are," he said gently. "But that's not the part you need to worry about." She tilted her head. Lucian stepped closer, just enough. "You're not afraid of tripping. You're afraid that, when you do, no one will catch you." Harper blinked. Silence. Then he said, "But I would." Those 3 words landed harder than any love confession she'd ever heard. And then, a soft knock. Both of them turned. Vivian, standing at the edge of the hallway with a manila folder in hand and a face unreadable. Sorry to interrupt, she said. Lucian, the Tokyo line just sent over contract changes. Time sensitive. Harper stepped back, instantly self-conscious. Lucian's expression shifted, subtle but clear. Disappointed in the timing. Still, he nodded. Be right there. Vivian turned, but not before glancing at Harper's blouse, at the compass pin. Nice to see that piece still circulating, she said smoothly. Your grandmother had excellent taste. Harper stiffened. Lucian didn't flinch. She still does. Vivian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, and disappeared around the corner. Harper exhaled. She knows, she whispered. Lucian gave a quiet nod. Vivian knows everything. And she doesn't like it? She doesn't have to. Another beat passed. Harper gave a small smile. You're going to be late for Tokyo. Lucian turned toward his office. But before he left, he said, if you ever want to use the rooftop again, it's yours. Later that night, Harper sat alone in her apartment. She opened the tin box again, the one Sandy had given back, her grandmother's sewing kit. The same faded buttons, the same tiny spool of gold thread, and tucked inside the fabric lining now was a note she hadn't noticed before, folded small. In her grandmother's slanted handwriting, don't let fear make you gentle when it's time to be bold. She held the compass pin in one hand and her phone in the other. No message from Lucian, but she wasn't waiting. She was deciding. Harper didn't know what exactly she was doing when she showed up at the office an hour early the next morning, blouse pressed, hair down, the compass pin clipped just under her collarbone. She only knew she was done waiting for permission. The office was nearly empty. Just a few lights on down in tech support, the faint hum of the vending machine in the break room. She took the elevator to the top floor. Lucian's door was closed. She paused, then knocked. Silence. And then, come in. She stepped into his office, her heels soft against the polished floor. Lucian stood behind his desk, jacket off, shirt sleeves already rolled, eyes shadowed by the morning light. You're early, he said. So are you. They stood there, a moment of quiet forming between them. Not tense, not awkward, just filled with something unspoken. Harper took a step closer. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. About tripping and falling, and who catches who. Lucian didn't speak, but his eyes told her to go on. I've been walking this building for weeks like I'm wearing someone else's skin, she continued, waiting to be called out, waiting to fail. She took a slow breath. But the truth is, I'm not afraid of failure. Lucian tilted his head. Then what are you afraid of? She looked directly at him now. I'm afraid that if you reach for me, really reach, I won't know how to hold that kind of kindness, that kind of belief. Lucian's jaw tightened slightly. His voice dropped. Then I guess we'll learn together. Something cracked open. The kind of pause where you don't breathe, where even the air holds its breath. Harper took a step closer. He didn't move. She could see his pulse now, steady, sure. Lucian, she whispered. He was so close. And then, a chime. Her desk phone buzzed from down the hall. The spell broke. Lucian exhaled softly, a flicker of frustration flashing through his eyes. Go, he said. But his voice was warm. So was his smile. Back at her desk, Harper found a calendar invite in her inbox. Lunch, off-site, 12 p.m., ward, lane, private. She stared at it, accepted, and checked the mirror 3 times before noon. They went to a quiet restaurant tucked into the upper level of a restored brownstone, a place without menus where the waiters knew your name and your past. Lucian ordered for them both. Nothing extravagant, just roasted sea bass, vegetables, and fresh bread. It felt simple, human. He poured her water with a small grin. You're used to staff lounges. I thought I'd offer something slightly less fluorescent. She smiled, relaxed now. I appreciate the lighting, she said. And the bread. As they ate, he asked about her life before the company. She told him. About her grandmother's small lake house, the summers barefoot on wooden porches, the way the compass pin was once sewn into a scarf because they couldn't afford real jewelry back then. Lucian listened like the story mattered, like she mattered. When dessert came, a small chocolate torte they shared, he placed his fork down and leaned slightly forward. "You're not who I expected," she paused. "Expected for what? For this? For any of it?" He looked down, then back up. "But I'm starting to realize you're exactly who I needed." The room quieted. For a moment, Harper forgot they weren't alone. Her heart beat against her ribs like it wanted to escape. She opened her mouth. "Lucian Ward." The voice sliced the air like a knife. Vivian. Perfect posture, unreadable expression, standing 3 feet away from their table. "Apologies," she said smoothly. "Didn't mean to interrupt. I had a meeting with the finance board upstairs." Lucian nodded once. "Everything all right?" "Oh, everything's perfect," she replied, but her gaze landed on Harper. Lingering, judging, she smiled politely. "Harper, your grandmother and I crossed paths years ago. I remember her quite well." Harper blinked. "You knew her?" "In passing," Vivian said. "Sharp woman. Very protective of what was hers." Something about the way she said it sent a cold thread down Harper's spine. Vivian turned back to Lucian. "I'll let you finish lunch. I'll have the legal review summary on your desk by 3. She walked off without waiting for a reply. Harper stared after her. Lucian sighed. "She's not subtle, is she?" "No," Harper said, "but I think that was subtle for her." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lucian looked at Harper. "She's not your enemy, but she is your test." Harper nodded slowly. "She sees me as a threat," Lucian smiled gently. "Then you're doing something right." That evening, Harper returned to her apartment and stood at the mirror longer than usual. She unpinned the compass from her blouse and held it in her palm. How many times had her grandmother held it like this, not to show power, but to remember she had it? Harper looked at herself, not the makeup, not the hair, not the clothes, just the woman. Braver now, still afraid, but walking forward anyway. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucian. "Dinner this weekend." "I want to show you something. Somewhere I go when I need to breathe." "Yes," she typed back. But what she meant was, "I'm ready." Lucian didn't give an address, just coordinates. Harper typed them into her phone and ended up somewhere between wonder and disbelief, a narrow road through the hills. Just outside the city. Trees leaned over the gravel path like a canopy of hush, and the sunset filtered through the branches in long, golden ribbons. The house appeared around the final bend. Not a mansion, not a glass-walled fortress, just a 2-story farmhouse with weathered shutters and ivy clinging to the stones like a secret. She stepped out of the rideshare slowly, her heels crunching against gravel. The air smelled like wood smoke and pine. He was waiting on the porch. No suit, no tie, just a navy sweater, dark jeans, sleeves pushed to his forearms. His smile was different here. Less filtered, less guarded. Like this was his real skin. And everything in the office was just armor. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. Harper swallowed. "I almost didn't." "Why?" She looked up at him. "Because I wasn't sure what this is." Lucian's eyes didn't waver. "Neither am I," he said, "but I know it's something." She stood there a moment longer, then nodded. "Okay." The house was warm, lived in. A fireplace flickered quietly in the corner. Books lined the walls. No marble, no chrome, just wood and history and the scent of lemon oil and rain. He guided her into the kitchen, where a small oak table was already set. 2 bowls of pasta, a basket of bread. Candles, no performance, no show. "I cooked," he said. She blinked. "You?" Lucian gave a mock, scandalized look. "I'm not completely helpless, you know," she laughed. He poured wine, just 1 glass. "I don't drink when I cook," he said. She sipped. It was red, bold, smooth, comforting. They sat, ate slowly, talking between bites. It was the first meal in weeks where she didn't feel like she was performing. He asked her what books she loved, what scent reminded her of childhood, whether she liked summer storms or fall mornings. It felt like he was memorizing her. Halfway through the meal, he paused. "You're quieter tonight," he said. "I'm not used to this much peace," Harper replied. He nodded. "Most people aren't." Then he looked directly at her. "I come here when the world gets too loud, when I forget who I am under the title." Harper rested her fork on the rim of her plate. "And who are you?" "Under it?" Lucian took a breath. "A man who's very tired of being alone." After dinner, they moved to the porch. No music, no phones, just a blanket, 2 cups of tea, and the stars. Harper sat with her knees tucked under her, the hem of her dress brushing against his leg every now and then. "I haven't been in a place this quiet since my grandmother's lake house," she murmured. Lucian glanced at her. "You miss her? Every day?" "She would have liked it here." "She hated money," Harper said with a soft laugh, "but she would have liked you." Lucian tilted his head. "Why?" Harper smiled. "Because you don't pretend to be bigger than your heart." He didn't answer that, just looked down at her lap, where her hands rested together. "You're not wearing it," he said. She followed his gaze. The compass pin. She'd left it behind on purpose. "I didn't need it tonight," she said. "I know where I am." A quiet pause, then just above a whisper, "Do you know where you want to be?" Lucian turned toward her fully now. The porch creaked under the shift of weight. "I know I want—" He started, then stopped. She waited. He tried again. "I want a life where no one looks at you like you don't belong." Her throat tightened. "I want to build something that doesn't ask you to shrink," he said. "Not for me. Not for anyone." Harper stared at him. Lucian reached for her hand, slowly, letting her see every movement before it happened. He didn't rush. When his fingers touched hers, she didn't pull away. They stayed like that, hand in hand under the stars, silence folding around them like a second blanket. Then, after a long moment, Lucian spoke again. "Will you stay a while?" "Not forever." "Just a while." Harper looked at the hand in hers, at the quiet house, at the stars, at the man beside her who didn't ask for answers, only her presence. She opened her mouth to say something, and then her phone buzzed. She startled, pulling it from her coat pocket. Unknown number, 1 line. "People like you don't last in his world. Be careful what you believe." Her blood turned to ice. Lucian saw her expression change. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She just turned the screen toward him. He read the message, and his jaw went sharp. "That's Vivian's language," he said. "But her number?" She wouldn't leave a trail. They sat in silence. Until Harper whispered, "Maybe she's right." Lucian's voice was low. "Don't do that. You've built a world where everyone has a role. What if mine was just to remind you what loneliness felt like, before you picked someone real?" Lucian stood, his voice firm now. "You're not a reminder." She looked up at him. He stepped closer, knelt beside her, took her hand again. "I don't want anyone realer than you." The message replayed in her mind all night. "People like you don't last in his world. Be careful what you believe." Harper didn't sleep, not even when Lucian wrapped a blanket around her shoulders on the porch. Not even when he offered to walk her inside. No pressure, no questions. She'd told him she wanted to be brave, that she wasn't afraid of falling. But now she understood something deeper. She wasn't afraid of falling in love. She was afraid of falling alone. At sunrise, Harper stood barefoot in the kitchen of Lucian's countryside home. He hadn't offered a guest room. He didn't need to. She'd stayed on the couch, her thoughts tangled in the soft hum of the fireplace and the too quiet silence between two people, suddenly aware of everything they hadn't said. Lucian found her like that, holding the pin, the morning light catching the edge of her hair. "Thought you might need coffee," he said. She smiled. "You read minds now?" "Only yours." He poured a mug and handed it to her, black, no cream, exactly how she took it when she needed to be sharp. They stood side by side, watching the light shift across the floor. "I'm not sorry you came," he said quietly. "I'm not either," he paused. "But," Harper's voice stayed soft, "I can't stay in something that depends on me staying quiet or small." Lucian met her eyes. "Then don't," he said. Her breath caught. "I've spent most of my life stepping sideways to make room for people," she admitted. "I don't want to do that anymore." "You don't have to." "Then you need to prove it." Lucian took the pin from her hand and clipped it gently back onto her blouse. She returned to the office late that morning, head high. The whispers were louder now, the stares bolder. A few accidental emails hit her inbox within the hour. Gossip disguised as logistics. Vivian didn't speak to her directly, not until 2:15 p.m. When Harper stepped into the small strategy meeting and found only one chair left, beside Vivian. She took it. Vivian smiled politely. "Nice of you to join us," Harper smiled back. Traffic was clear, timing was mine. The meeting began. Budgets, projections, PR fallout planning. At one point, Vivian turned a page and said, "Harper, would you like to weigh in on the sustainability proposal, or would you prefer to defer to someone more seasoned?" Harper didn't blink. "I'd be happy to contribute," she said calmly, "unless the suggestion is that new ideas have no place here." Lucian, seated at the end of the table, looked up, sharp but quiet. Vivian said nothing, but Harper felt it, the shift. Not everyone in the room was on Vivian's side. After the meeting, Harper returned to her desk, pulse steady. One of the junior analysts, Liana, barely 24, stopped by with a quiet smile. "I saw what you did in there," she said. "Just thanks." Harper blinked. "For what?" "For making it feel possible." Harper's chest warmed, small but important. Later that evening, Lucian knocked gently on the glass near her desk. "Walk with me?" She followed him down the back corridor to the side balcony overlooking the city. The wind was cooler now, the sky deepening to early dusk. Lucian leaned against the railing. "You were incredible in that meeting." "I wasn't trying to be," she said. "That's why it worked." He hesitated. "I don't want to be the reason you question yourself." "You're not, but I might be," he said. "And I need you to be honest with me when I am." Harper stepped closer. "You want honesty?" He nodded. She looked at him. The suit, the jawline, the guarded softness that only surfaced when no one else was looking. Then she said, "Either I belong in your life all the way, or I walk away with my dignity intact. But I'm not doing the in-between anymore." Lucian's breath caught. "You're giving me an ultimatum?" "No," she said. "I'm giving me one." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lucian stepped forward, took both of her hands, and pressed something into her palm. She opened it, the key to his countryside home. "It's not a test," he said. "It's a door. I want you to know it's open. Whenever you need space to be yourself." Her throat tightened. "And if I need more than space?" she whispered. Lucian leaned down, forehead nearly brushing hers. "Then stay." 3 days passed. 3 quiet, heavy days where Harper didn't go to the countryside. Didn't wear the pin. Didn't respond to the text Lucian had sent the night before. "You don't have to run, but if you need to, run toward something, not away." She read it again and again, and still. She hesitated, because the truth wasn't fear. It was belief. And belief, especially in love, was a terrifying thing to hold without breaking. The invitation came on a Thursday morning, not from Lucian, from Vivian. Lunch, rooftop terrace, no assistants, just us. No emojis, no signature, just a location. Harper stared at it for a long time before replying, "I'll be there." Vivian was already seated when Harper arrived. The terrace was sharp with late autumn air, and the city stretched wide beneath them. Harper sat across from her. No preamble. Vivian poured tea, real porcelain cups, real silence. "You've lasted longer than most," Vivian said finally. Harper raised an eyebrow. "Most what?" "Most who've caught his attention." Harper didn't answer. Vivian stirred her tea slowly. "I used to believe women like you were temporary, distractions, romantic dust. And now?" Vivian looked at her, really looked at her, and her voice softened. "Now I think I just didn't know how to recognize permanence when it didn't come wrapped in a pedigree." Harper blinked. "I'm not here to ask for your approval." "You're not getting it," Vivian replied. "But you're getting my respect, which is rarer." She took a slow sip. "You held your ground. You didn't beg. You didn't break." Harper smiled just slightly. "Neither did you." Vivian let the moment sit. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. Harper stared. Vivian opened it. Inside, polished and delicate, was the original estate auction tag from the jewelry lot, the one that once held her grandmother's compass pin. Vivian slid it across the table. "I bought the lot." Harper's breath caught. "I knew what it was," Vivian said softly, "and who you were. I assumed he'd never notice. But then he did." "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because something tells me you're about to become part of this world, and I'd rather not stand in your way when you do." Vivian was never against Harper, only against anything that might destabilize Lucian. Harper stared at her, then reached forward, slowly, and closed her hand around the tag. "Thank you," she said. Vivian nodded, and the conversation ended without another word. But something unspoken passed between them, a truce. Harper realized then that Vivian would never be careless enough to leave a digital trail. The message hadn't been hers. That evening, Harper stood on the rooftop of Lucian's home. Not the office, not the porch, his world. And she didn't knock. She let herself in. Lucian was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, a pan sizzling quietly on the stove. He turned when he heard her footsteps. He didn't smile right away, but something in his shoulders relaxed. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't either." She walked to him, stopping just short of his reach. "I needed to know that if I stepped toward you," she said, "it would be for the right reasons." Lucian set the pan aside. "And are they?" Harper reached into her coat pocket, pulled out the auction tag, set it on the counter. "Because I've spent a long time thinking I was lost," she said. "But maybe I was just on my way to something that would finally feel like home." Lucian stared at the tag, then at her. "Vivian gave you that?" "I didn't ask for it," she said. "But I took it anyway." A pause, then, "I want to build a life where I don't need to wear this pin to remember who I am," Harper said. "I want to be her." Lucian stepped forward. "Then, let's build it together." She looked up at him, no guards, no defense, and whispered, "Ask me." His voice dropped, quiet and real. "Will you stay?" She nodded. "Ask me again." He reached for her hand, held it gently. "Harper Lane, will you stay?" She smiled. "Yes." Then, "Lucian Ward, will you stay with me?" He pulled her in, forehead resting against hers, always. They ate dinner side by side, barefoot, plates warm in their hands, spinach and ricotta again, like the lunch that changed everything. They didn't talk about the office, or the headlines that would come, or the way people would whisper, because tonight, the only voices that mattered were theirs. Later, as the stars stretched overhead, Harper reached into her coat one last time. She clipped the compass pin back onto her blouse. Lucian raised an eyebrow. She smiled. She hadn't worn the pin that night. She didn't need it, not here, not with him. "I'm not wearing it because I'm lost." "No? I'm wearing it because I finally know where I am." Several months later. The lake was quiet that morning, not silent, just still. The kind of stillness that comes when the past no longer haunts the present. When every leaf, every ripple in the water feels like it's watching with gentle approval. Harper stood on the back porch of her grandmother's old house, now freshly painted, lovingly repaired but still humble. The same wooden swing, the same wind chimes, the same scent of pine and sun-warmed earth. She could almost hear her grandmother humming in the kitchen. The house hadn't changed, but she had. Her reflection in the window showed a woman no longer holding her breath, her eyes softer, her shoulders no longer slouched in self-doubt. And in her hands, a small bouquet of pale cream roses and wild herbs, and tucked among them, pinned to the ribbon, the silver compass. It no longer pointed her toward escape. It had become a part of her story, not as a reminder of where she'd been lost, but a symbol of everything she'd chosen to find. The ceremony was small. No stage, no announcements, no cameras, just a few chairs set in a half-circle under the tree line by the lake. Ezra was there, smiling nervously in a tailored vest that didn't quite fit. Sandy from payroll sat beside him, holding hands with her wife and passing tissues before the first tear even fell. Liana, the youngest analyst from Harper's old floor, had driven 4 hours just to witness it. There was bread, wine, soup in hand-painted bowls, the kind of meal people remembered not for the taste, but for the feeling. And Vivian stood beneath a cedar tree just far enough from the others to go unnoticed by most. But Harper saw her. She wore navy, no clipboard, no sharp comments, only a soft nod when Harper looked her way, one that said, "You held for Meza, even so." Vivian didn't stay long after the ceremony, but as she left, she paused near the old porch swing and glanced at the wind chimes. "Your grandmother had good taste," she murmured, almost to herself. Harper smiled. She knew how to pick people. Vivian met her eyes, then, with a barely visible smirk, walked away, leaving the past where it belonged. Lucian waited at the water's edge, his hands steady, his eyes full. He didn't wear a tux, just a dark vest, rolled sleeves, and the same silver watch he wore the day they met, the one that matched the compass she now held. When Harper walked toward him, time stopped. Not for the world, just for them. "You found your way," he whispered, eyes glinting. Harper smiled, holding his gaze. "No," she said. "It found me." They didn't exchange traditional vows. No scripts, no audience applause, just promises whispered low between two people who had nothing to prove, only love to protect. "I don't want to be rescued," Harper said. "Good," Lucian answered. "I only want to walk beside you." Later that evening, after the sun dipped below the lake and the breeze carried the last bits of laughter into the trees, Harper sat barefoot on the same porch swing where she once learned to read. Lucian joined her, wrapping a light blanket around her shoulders. His presence felt like memory, not because it reminded her of the past, but because it felt like something that had always been meant to be. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine it like this?" he asked softly. Harper looked out at the dark water, the moon reflecting like a second sky. "No," she said. "But I think that's the point." He kissed the top of her head. The compass pin glinted in the soft porch light, still nestled in her bouquet, now resting between them. And Harper whispered, to no one in particular, "One. Everything I needed to find found me first. The end." Sometimes love doesn't arrive like a fairy tale. It walks into the room quietly, asks if you're okay, and waits while you remember how to breathe. So now I ask you, what would you have done in Harper's place? Would you have stayed? Would you have fought to belong? Let me know in the comments, and rate this story from 0 to 10. I want to hear what this one made you feel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.